Welcome to Storytime with Nigel Crawford. We now start with part 2 of Ho White and the 7 Midgets. Where we left off, Ho White was just meeting all 7 midgets in the bedroom with no clothes on and a dildo in her hand.
All 7 midgets rushed into the room, and each had an exciting look on their faces.
Who's that?
They asked.
I am Ho White. Who and what are you?
We're the 7 midgets!
They replied. They all introduced themselves individually.
I'm Stinky.
I'm Dinky.
I'm Lumpy. I'm Dumpy. I'm Stumpy.
I'm Wanker.
And I'm Bob.
Bob.
Ho White mumbled.
By any chance, do you play the violin? Never mind. Just shut up and let me finish my story, douchebags.
After she had finished her story, Lumpy said,
Well, if you want, you can stay here with us. That would be a great idea.
said Stinky.
It's settled then. I'll stay here for a while, you silly little faggots.
Hooray! Hooray!
Exclaimed the midgets as they slam danced to punk rock and hosed ale down their gullets. Meanwhile, the Mexican had made it back to the castle with his green card in one hand and a bloody tampon in the other. He explained to the queen that he had murdered the princess by driving this plastic spoon through her skull, scooping her brains out and leaving them for the wolves. The queen was very pleased to hear this, because she had just gotten her prescription filled the day before and had taken a hefty dose of her meds just hours prior to hearing the news. She ran to the tall tower of her bedroom, looked into the mirror, and said,
Mirror, mirror on the wall, blah, 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 blah.
After her spiel, she said back to herself,
Well, that little hoe is still the most beautiful piece of ass in this land, and she's down in the woods hanging with those midget boys.
She shrieked with horror and repeated over and over again,
She must die! She must die! She must die! She must die!
The queen quickly retrieved her Wicked Witch of the West Halloween outfit from 1988 and strapped it on faster than a dildo in a lesbian porno film. Leaving behind the wart and green nose, the queen began to run down to the cabin through the forest as fast as she could. But before reaching the cabin, she stopped by the nearby swamp with her fly fishing rod and throwed a few casts. Several half hours later, she had caught a baker's dozen of fresh swamp salmon.
I will tempt that little hoe with these delicious salmon, and I will poison the one I tempt her with.
Meanwhile, the hoe is waving goodbye to the midgets as they pull their luchador masks over their head and pick the spandex tight from their asses.
Another day of work.
Stumpy said,
Fuck, man, at least you don't have to wrestle Chris Benoit.
said Dinky. Ho White closed the door and began to cook the midget some fried chicken for lunch, when all of a sudden she heard a knock at the door.
Who could that be?
Said the hoe. She looked through the apartment door peephole and saw an unfamiliar older woman dressed up in a fucked up black dress, carrying a basket of delicious salmon.
Can I help you?
She replied. The older woman bellowed.
I caught a lovely salmon for you.
Ho was confused.
Whatever, you don't know me.
She said in a Maury Povich guest-like accent.
But I caught you a delicious salmon.
The woman repeated.
Oh, okay.
The princess threw open the door and snatched the salmon from the woman's hands.
Thanks, old lady.
I'm not old, you enjoy your salmon.
The princess loved fresh, raw swamp salmon, and began to scoff the little bastard down. For fuck's sakes, he was still flopping around in her mouth as she chewed him up. 3 seconds later, the hoe fell to the floor, passing out like a drunk sorority chick.
That'll teach you, you fucking cum dumpster.
Said the queen as she fled the scene of the crime. All of a sudden, a gigantic trailer with Kansas license plates came crashing to the ground. The midgets heard the crash from the far distance. They all sprung from their turnbuckles, rushing to the crashing sound.
Oh my god!
Said Stinky.
I hope Ho is alright.
What will become of our White? Will she live? Will she die? Will she have meatloaf for dinner? Please stay tuned next week for Broken Records Radio in Part 3 and the grand finale of White and the 7 Midgets.